Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Wednesday, June the 25th. Lovely to have you in for another episode of the Prime Time Show. We are going to talk about your level of trust in your organization. Feels like a good opportunity for a temperature check at this point in time, with 5 weeks to go before we get back into the swing of things for training camp, and with a lot of time to think about, okay, the plan moving forward is what? It's been a while since we've done one of these resets, and so I figured tonight was as good as any night to talk about how much Titans fans can actually trust the team to get it right with Cam Ward. I think it's a completely fair conversation to have. I'm sure many of you have thought about this as you think about the rate at which number one picks, first round picks specifically at this position, end up being the actual kind of franchise changing player that you need. Well, it's tough to change a franchise if the most important part of your franchise is the most difficult part to change, which is management. And in the case of the Titans, there is reason to believe that in the last couple of years, they have not gotten it right. And as they continue to try to get it right, which I do believe they're making an honest effort to, where they may fall short or how they might fall short is worth just kind of keeping an eye on, because they have to get everything or as much as humanly possible right around Cam Ward for him to be able to be a success. He can do it on his own. He can live up to his part of the bargain, but it's also incumbent upon the organization to do their best to support him as well, which is the thing that we're going to get into. So before we do that, need you guys to share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Wherever you're spending your time with us, we so appreciate when you share this program around. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, I'm on Facebook Live right now. You can share now to public if you are hanging out on Facebook, and we always like seeing new names and new faces in the Facebook chat. YouTube too, Twitch as well. If you are there, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell a friend to do the same. It is always a good time when we can hang out together and talk some shop, but it's even better when you guys can invite some of your friends to talk about the Titans with us. And once you've done that, we will go ahead and get this thing started as more of you guys trickle on in here. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Wednesday night. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch. Go to TrueMavFitness.com for your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. TrueMavFitness.com for more details. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Online at TwoRiversFord.com. Quality American-made Ford vehicles and award-winning customer service is what they offer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at TwoRiversFord.com for more details. The Titans and where they are right now in their current configuration. It's been a long road for them since they felt like they were at the peak of their powers. It's been quite some time. Robert and I, just before we started, were taking a look at old box scores. I had no idea, for example, that the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers won a playoff game was 2017. That's 8 years ago, and that's one of the premier franchises in the NFL. Now, that's the definition of it's not good enough to win more games than you lose if you win enough games to get to the postseason. But as soon as you get into the playoffs, you're just kind of a tomato can for one of the real teams to knock over. And that's kind of defined the last 8 years of Pittsburgh Steelers football. For the Titans, they obviously don't have quite the same standard or the same level of expectation. I don't think any of you guys would argue that the Steelers organization and the Titans organization could be talked about on level terms. But the Titans have a playoff win more recently than the Pittsburgh Steelers do. In fact, they have a couple more recently than the Pittsburgh Steelers do. And I think in terms of playoff success, you probably wouldn't think of them as a more successful franchise than the Steelers, and they're not. Pittsburgh gets there more often, certainly in the last couple of years, but it's about what you do with those opportunities, and they haven't been able to do shit. Now, for the Titans, they haven't been able to capitalize on momentum in quite some time. 2020, they lost to the Ravens in the wild card round at home. It was the first time they'd hosted a home playoff game in like 14 or 15 years. Baltimore came in. They had a good plan early. A.J. Brown was working against Marlon Humphrey. That very quickly faded. And for some reason, Arthur Smith stopped going to A.J. Brown in that spot. Was that the right decision? Was that the wrong decision? Retrospect makes it look like the wrong decision, but there's also a Lamar Jackson. I think he had what did Lamar have? Like a 35, 40-yard touchdown run off script in that game to kind of break things open, and you were never able to catch that momentum. Then in the following year, we all know the tired old story of the number one overall seed Titans that pooped the bed against the Cincinnati Bengals the year that they went to the Super Bowl and had 9 sacks in a playoff game against Joe Burrow. A few of those were waved off, as a matter of fact. They could have had like 11 sacks in that game. Ryan Tannehill throws 3 interceptions, one on the first offensive play, one on the very last offensive play. He throws one in the middle. And the Titans are never able to get off the ground. They squander the opportunity to host home playoff games as the number one overall seed in 2021. And things, I mean, they really haven't felt right since the following offseason. They trade AJ, everything that spiraled after the Isaiah Wilson situation. Them continuing to chase right tackle, all these different things. There's a lot of bad in there in the last couple of years that the Titans are trying to figure out. But now they've gotten to a point, or they had gotten to a point, where they're picking number one overall. They're the worst team in football. And so with that number one overall pick, they get a player at a position who they think is going to be capable of turning the entire thing around. And that's Cam Ward. And that's fair. Cam Ward is built for this. Cam Ward is somebody who I think is capable of being one of these game-changing players for an organization that needs one, but he can't do it alone. And the thing that I come back to is, how Titans fans have experienced their organization handling the quarterback position in the last couple of years, whether you want to go back to Jake Locker or Marcus Mariota or what befell Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill did fall short, make no mistake, but the Titans failed Ryan Tannehill too by not continuing to support him with a roster that was going to be viable. Ryan Tannehill was a fine quarterback when the roster was fine to above average. And then when things started to depreciate around him, you were asking him to do too much. It was way beyond his level of ability, and that would have been beyond a lot of people's level of ability. I don't think, the best versions of Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts would have succeeded in Nashville with the kind of rosters that Ryan Tannehill was being trotted out there with. So whether or not you want to blame him entirely or be reasonable about what was surrounding him at the time, there's no question that the organization has failed players at the position far more often than those players have failed the organization. Ricky Anthony says, are you drinking? A fine quarterback. Yes, Ricky, somebody who lasted as a first-round pick, 12 to 13 years in the NFL, was a completely viable starter for 2 different organizations, is the most statistically accomplished quarterback. That's like saying, and I know Steve McNair's stats aren't everything because Steve, his in-game toughness, his ability to will teams to wins in a different version of football, completely understand why you would not put him and Tannehill on the same plane. Steve McNair is still the best Titans era quarterback. Nobody's disputing this. But Ryan Tannehill's the most statistically accomplished quarterback in the Titans era of football. So yeah, dipshit, you can't completely dismiss the guy who's got the most stats, the guy who had the most consecutive starts for you, the guy who oversaw the most effective Titans era offense in the franchise's history. That was 2020 Tannehill. Efficiency is how you look at Tannehill, but once the roster started to shit the bed, he did too. I think both of those things can be true. That's the case for the vast majority of quarterbacks. And it's why I think it's important to talk about Cam, because Cam is on a bad roster still, and Cam cannot do this alone. Patrick Mahomes couldn't win a Super Bowl by himself. The Eagles swamped him in a big spot and went out and whipped his ass because he didn't have as good an offensive line as the Eagles had a defensive line. And he didn't have as good a wide receivers as Jalen Hurts had in the Super Bowl. It's a team sport. And while it does behoove you to have the best quarterback, it does not cure everything, which is why we are looking at this situation and saying, all right, how much do you actually trust the Titans? Not Cam Ward. I think plenty of people trust Cam Ward to be able to elevate these things. The question, though, becomes, all right, are the Titans going to be able to get it right around him? In the comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, what is your level of trust on a scale of 1 to 10 that your level of trust in the Tennessee Titans to get it right around Cam Ward? This is not a Cam Ward question. This is a Titans organizational question. It's really a question of how much do you trust Amy Adams-Strunk? Because at the end of the day, her decision-making is going to impact Cam Ward and Brian Callahan and Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker and Chimere Dike and Calvin Ridley and all these people. How much do you, in your honest assessment, if you put aside the hope that you're putting on Cam Ward, how much do you trust the Titans organization to get it right? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll talk about it together. It's your Two Rivers Ford Take. As always, your Two Rivers Ford Take is presented by the thing that you can trust the most. That's the South's most trusted Ford dealer. That's Two Rivers Ford. Quality American-made Ford vehicles, employee pricing for everyone is what they offer you. You can go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. You pay what they pay on almost every new Ford on the lot. That's tworiversford.com for more details. So the level of organizational trust that you have in the Titans, and there's nothing wrong with feeling optimistic about the current configuration. Not only have they not done enough to prove you wrong, they haven't done enough to prove you right. We're in this weird middle ground. I think Puka articulates it well. 6, we know so little about the current general manager. Completely fair. Now, I will say we do know a lot about Mike Borgonzi. Mike Borgonzi's got a huge resume. 16 years in Kansas City. And you can say, well, he was surrounded by other highly successful personnel people. He was at an organization with arguably the NFL. I mean, I don't think it's even arguable right now. Andy Reid is the NFL's best coach currently. Andy Reid was in Kansas City almost the entire time that Mike Borgonzi was in Kansas City. So you can pick at these things. You can nitpick at these things all you want. But what I will tell you, and it's only, secondhand information, but that's the best that we've got to work with now. And you see the way that he works and you hear things about the way that he works in the organization currently that he's with. Mike Borgonzi is a very serious personnel man. Mike Borgonzi is a very serious football guy. Mike Borgonzi is just about the job. A lot of the traits that Cam Ward is praised for, which is just being about the work, made of the right shit, the kind of makeup that is required, the kind of makeup that is necessary for you to succeed in this game. I think you can identify a lot of those traits in Mike Borgonzi as well. But it's completely fair to be skeptical because I'm sure many of you thought Rand Carthon would be good at this job. And how good or bad at this job Rand actually was, I think, is up for some debate. Organization clearly didn't trust him moving forward. But again, are they the ones that you should trust to make those decisions? That's kind of where we're at. The coaching staff, I think that Brian Callahan is very serious about his job. I know that Brian Callahan is very serious about his job. I know Brian Callahan to be a highly effective football mind, but he has some limitations. Last year was his first year putting together a staff, running an NFL organization, or being a part of the brain trust that runs an NFL organization. I think he made some mistakes as far as the way that he handled the players. I think that there were some missteps as far as what the offseason program looked like. I think he's worked his ass off to correct all those things. I don't have a lack of trust in Brian Callahan being up for this job. The question is, are they going to give him the opportunity to succeed? Is there going to be a requisite level of patience? There has to be, must be, if you're going to draft Cam Ward. But just because in our heads there must be a level of commitment to the coach for the quarterback's sake, the guy that you just drafted, Amy Adams-Strunk has made erratic decisions in the last couple of years. Maybe she gets it right this year. That's the great unknown that we have at this point in time. So as you kind of consider all the different things that are on the table, what is your level of trust in the organization at this point? Devin Canfield's right in the middle. He's at a 5. Tony Trejo is at a 6. Brandon Casey says he's simply scared of the pain. I want to believe. Oh, he says, I want to believe, but I am scared of the pain. So he gives a 4.5. Bearded, whatever that word is, says 8.2. I think Mike has a good idea of how to build the franchise. But 8.2 is way too high for just an idea, right? You need proof of concept. And he does have proof of concept, but it's in Kansas City. It's like L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed had proof of concept in Kansas City. Then he came to Tennessee, and it didn't pan out. Richie is a 3. He's lower on his level of trust for the Titans to be able to get this thing correct. Browning says, I see this question as, can the organization do enough on Cam's first contract to get us to a Super Bowl? That's a tough sell. I honestly think it's a mistake to look at it that way. First contract quarterbacks make it to the Super Bowl, but they don't win Super Bowls. Russell Wilson is probably the only example in the last couple of years of a player who's actually been able to pull it off. Is it enough for you to get to a Super Bowl? Sure. But you're one of the most tortured organizations in the NFL because you famously got to a Super Bowl and you came up 1 yard short. I think it's okay to not do it on your rookie contract. Herbert didn't. Burrow made it, but lost. I still think he gives them a chance to get back to the Super Bowl. I think the more football that you play, the longer that you last in the league, the better chance that you have to get your guys there. But you would obviously have to make some adjustments. That then puts more onus on the quarterback. In theory, it should be easier to make it to a Super Bowl when you are able to get the rookie quarterback right and build out a team around him. But that puts so much pressure on the rookie quarterback to be the guy. And he may be the guy, but he may not be the guy yet. He could be Matt Stafford. He could clearly and obviously have the talent to do it for the organization that drafted him, but the organization that drafted him continues to get it wrong around him. So Matt Stafford has to go somewhere else to win a Super Bowl. So Cam Ward could win a Super Bowl. He may not do it with the Titans. That's kind of the reality of the current quarterback configuration where teams draft a guy, they put a lot of resources around him. He may be good, but he may not be ready. He may be good enough to get you there. He may be good enough to get you the NFC Championship game, Jaden Daniels, but he just can't get you there yet. Okay, well, you assume that he's going to continue to have an upward trajectory, which I think is a fine assumption, and you're going to continue to build things right around him. But then you also benefit from health. How healthy were the Commanders last season? Very healthy throughout the course of their playoff run. Is that something that you can rely on happening again? Probably not. Nobody knows that better than Titans fans, how critical health is. In fact, you overcame the hardest thing to overcome, which was the health of your football team in 2021. You won 12 games with a roster that was mangled, a walking wounded. You had home playoff game, singular, because your quarterback shit the bed. Plain and simple. And also, I think mistakes were made in a couple of different areas, but Ryan Tannehill came up short in as big a spot as you could have asked him to perform in. He came up well short of those expectations. That happens too. You can have a successful season and you can major malfunction in the biggest spot. You can call it lack of clutch. You can call it a quarterback with a ceiling, but there's not many. I know it's hard to wrap your head around, and it's fair of you to have that criticism, but there's not many quarterbacks who have even been able to accomplish what Ryan Tannehill did. We've read you these stats before about how hard it is for rookie quarterbacks to hit for the teams that draft them, where less than 46%, actually, I think that number is 46%, right around 46% right now, based on Jaden Daniels' playoff run. But let's just call it 46%. 46% of quarterbacks who are drafted by their team even win a playoff game. So that means that 54% of them are not even doing that. They may win a playoff game, but they may do it for another team. Geno's not a first-round pick, bad example. But Stafford is an interesting case study here. Tannehill is an interesting case study here, right? As a first-round quarterback that didn't win a playoff game for the Miami Dolphins. Won playoff games for the Tennessee Titans. He's your case in point. Now, theoretically, you can find ways to make this work, but it's very, very difficult, and it has to be done by organizations that you can trust. The Titans may end up being an organization that you can trust, but we don't know that yet because they've spent so many years getting it wrong. They've spent so many years taking a hatchet to that trust. Now they're in the process of trying to regain that, trying to be competent, trying to be disciplined. They may, like I said, they may get it right this time, but it doesn't mean that you have to trust them implicitly, which is why I would go with the 2. It's so hard for me to place any level of trust in an organization that at every turn in the last 4 years has made horrible mistakes that would end up making them the worst team in football. So right now, as we sit here today, even understanding the principals who are going to be involved in this thing and people who I all think, Cam Ward, Brian Callahan, Mike Borgonzi, I even think, I know that Titans fans probably have a mixed opinion on Chad Brinker just because of the way that it ended with Rand Carthon. That's completely fair, by the way. It's okay to be skeptical of that. But I do think that Chad Brinker at least has the right intentions, whether he's going to have the capability as somebody with roster control to get this thing right. And the thing that you can't control at the end of the day, this is a question about how much you trust Amy Adams Strunk. Maybe we are at a point where she's put the right people in place and she's content to just let them do their jobs. That's entirely possible. But if she hasn't done it yet, then can you just assume that she's going to do it? Probably not. So this is a question about her at the head of the organization. Do you trust her to be able to make the correct decisions to get this right? That level of trust right now for me is a 2. It doesn't have to be for you. You can give her more credit than I am. You can think that she's made the correct decisions this time around so that they can get to that spot. But that's still a wait and see type proposition. It's still a hypothetical. We have to operate with the current information that we have on hand. The current information that we have on hand is that they drafted a quarterback. They think they brought in the right people to do these jobs. They are still working with a roster that's suspect. They have finished in 4th place in the last 2 years. They have made a lot of mistakes. They have hired and fired a lot of mistakes en route to getting here. Those things are cyclical too, and owners are human beings. They can make mistakes. They can also correct their mistakes. But if I have to sit here, and right now, up until this point, answer a question about my level of trust in Amy, yeah, I'd make it a 2. I don't know how you could go any higher than that. Long Live Cali says the general manager doesn't give more hope than a 2. No, because he doesn't run the organization. He doesn't even have final roster say. He can only control so much, and he can get the roster right. But what happens if he gets the roster right and, Brian Callahan, it takes him a little longer, but is the right person for the job? If she decides, well, the roster's better than I think we actually are, the roster is we should be a better football team than we actually are. Because the reason that she keeps saying that she's firing people in these statements, because she doesn't speak publicly on it, or really private. I mean, I'm sure she speaks privately on it, but you understand my meaning. She just keeps citing their record. Okay, well, this is probably going to be a football team that at best wins 6 or 7 games. Like that's really as optimistic as you could get. That'd be a huge turnaround. Doubling your win total or more than doubling your win total year over year, and a quarterback showing promise, that would be a huge success. But is that going to be enough for her? I don't know the answer to that question. That's something that only she can answer. So there's nothing wrong with being optimistic about the people that she's hired, but still not trusting her, because that's what the question is at the end of the day. And that's what I asked Louis Riddick, who is a diehard Cam Ward believer when he was on the radio show. And he's been on Cam Ward far before the Titans ended up drafting Cam Ward. But Louis gave this diatribe about why he thinks Cam Ward is the perfect person to do this in Tennessee. And my follow-up was, yeah, but how much do you trust them to get it right around Cam Ward?
I'm sure you've heard the Kevin O'Connell clip from last offseason where he's talking about the rate of quarterback churn and burn, right? He's talking about the organizations that fail these players far more often than the players themselves fail. Because I am 100% in agreement with you, Louis, based on all the different stories that we hear from people who we've talked to on the show and done research on at Miami, Wazoo, and even Incarnate Word, and just seeing the way that his teammates have interacted with him during the course of the Titans offseason program, all these different things. And yet, the organization itself, I think, is still quite suspect in the way that they are trying to build around them. I think Mike Borgonzi is a very serious football personnel man. I think Brian Callahan is a very serious football coach. But we have seen several instances of these things across the board go sideways. And I wonder how you feel about the landing spot for him beyond him being built for this.
Yeah. Well, I think you touched on two important points. Well, really one in particular. Look, Mike knows in particular, that being Borgonzi, where he just came from, the amount of time he spent there with Andy and Brett Reed and Brett Veach, and why Patrick was as successful as he was, going beyond his own physical skills and his mental makeup, and how to go about trying to foster that kind of environment for the guy, for a quarterback, so he can then just take off and become all he can be. I mean, there isn't much more that you can really get in terms of a GM who has seen the development arc of right now who is considered to be the most talented quarterback maybe we've seen in the past 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years. So if they just let him execute what his vision is in terms of I'm trying to copy and put together and follow the same kind of blueprint that Brett and Andy followed in Kansas City, then they have a chance. Because you're right. And I've been talking about this since, well, when we got into TV back in 2013 at ESPN about the fact that the development and utilization phase of player development, if you're talking about, you know, scouting and information gathering, and then valuation and selection, and then development and implementation. Those are the three tripods of, to me, of team building. Development and utilization. That's the most important phase. Because look, all scouts obviously think that they can scout better than the next guy and they can see shit that other guys can't, blah, blah, blah. It's not true. What's really true is, and how you can really get a competitive advantage is when you get them under your roof. Now, what are you doing? And so you're right. Some organizations have a history of screwing it up, churning over coaches, churning over play callers, churning through players, owners getting involved, team presidents getting involved, team president's wife gets involved, the man on the street gets involved, everyone's listening to everyone's opinion, and next thing you know, you don't have a philosophical direction. In Tennessee, it's the greatest team sport in the world, right? It's the most popular sport, obviously, in our country by far, because and everyone's so invested. There's so much information, and everyone has access to all this behind the scenes information. And what happens is there's so many people who have so many things to say that sometimes the people who are in charge become so distracted and listen to so much crap that they forget why they were put in that spot in the first place, which is 9 times out of 10, because they're competent and they know how to get, what it takes to get there. If you just let a guy like Mike Borgonzi do what he's capable of doing, what he has seen done when he was in Kansas City, you have a chance. Protect the quarterback, build a solid wall, make sure it's a complementary offense, make sure he has weapons, make sure you have a solid defense and a coach who understands the field position and putting your quarterback in advantageous spots. Make sure you have a great quarterback coach who can be the go-between between your quarterback and the play caller, because that's the guy who settles it all down, who can really kind of like decipher all the information in real time during the game. You saw, speaking of Kevin O'Connell, how many times did we see clips of Sam Darnold last year talking with Josh McCown?
Right.
And Josh is the one who's really taking the information from Kevin and saying, look, this is what I need you to do. This is what we need you to do. Not that Kevin can't, but it's all part of it. It's all part of getting that one dude at the command and control center to be able to process all that information and then throw the football when he's getting hit upside the head by some of the fiercest athletes on earth. Like there's so many things, man. There's so many things that go into it. Just let the people do what they do who have been hired in these specific spots, and then let the chips fall where they may. Just stop turning stuff over and listening to what Adam Schefter says or the late, great Chris Mortensen. I remember, like, people used to call these guys all the time, and I'd hear them. There'd be owners, GMs, all kinds of stuff asking, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of this guy? It's like, dude, they're reporters. I mean, they're my boys and they're my guys, and I love them to death, and they're competent as hell, the best of the profession, but they're not there all the time. They don't know. Like, just let the people, just trust your ability to hire great people, and then let them go, and then let them build some consistency, so you give chances to guys like Cam Ward as far as him becoming everything that he can become. There's no secret. There's no secret as to why a guy like Patrick becomes what he becomes, why Josh Allen has become what he's become in Buffalo, why, look, even Joe Burrow is uniquely talented, but he's had some levels of consistency around him, especially when you're talking about the offensive side of the ball and the people who are in his ear. Okay, there's been some consistency there. There's a reason why. Like even like, and just go on down the list. Look at Lamar. Look at Lamar Jackson. I just heard some people talking about Lamar Jackson on the radio earlier today when Lamar was potentially going to be a free agent. All the teams who were like, "We're not interested. We're not interested. We're not interested." And then he winds up re-signing in Baltimore. And what does he do? He just wins a couple MVP. It's like there's a reason why he was able to continually ascend because John Harbaugh had a great plan for him, continued to tweak it. Obviously, he brings in Todd Monken to kind of take it to a whole nother level because he believed that Lamar needed a little bit more to really become all that he's become. And right now, I mean, hell, Lamar is unstoppable. There's just watch what these organizations do, and they all have certain things that are all very similar from one to the other and why it leads to the success that their quarterbacks have had.
Louis Riddick, really good. Really, turns out Louis Riddick, excellent at what he does. That's ESPN's Louis Riddick. That full interview. In fact, Robert, if you would potentially do me the kindness of dropping the link to the full interview that we did with Louis, what was that, last week? Maybe 2 weeks ago at this point. At some point in the last couple of weeks, Louis was on the radio show, and you can see that full interview and listen to a lot of his analysis about Cam because he spent way more time talking about Cam than he did about the way that organizations work. But that's somebody who you can trust. He is a former NFL athlete turned front office member where he was with, I want to say, Washington and then Philadelphia. There might have been another team in between there that Louis Riddick was working for until 2013 when the staff that he was working on got fired and he went into media at that point. And Louis Riddick has been one of the foremost experts as far as player personnel evaluation on television for us to have as a resource now for the better part of over a decade. And he has helped articulate a lot of these situations. And he's been right about the vast majority of these situations. You can't be right about everything. There's too many variables. But still, I think his point there is hire the right people first and foremost, and then let those people do their job. Stay out of it. It sounds so simple. It sounds so simple. But it's not that simple. And certainly it's not that simple because at the end of the day, you are hired by people who have control of these organizations and will look around and say, yeah, but what do you know? It's my team. Even if they're wrong a lot. It should be that simple, but it's hard for NFL owners in a lot of situations to stick to that. And it's okay for fans to lack patience. It's not okay for owners to lack patience, especially when they have at least verbally committed to a plan and then decide, after a year or two, if the plan's not going exactly the way that they wanted it to say, all right, I'll blow it up and I'll make a new plan. Okay, good luck. That, for me, is kind of at the crux of this thing. So how much do I trust the Titans organization right now? I think it's a 2. I think it's a 2 until they prove otherwise. And they are so welcome to prove otherwise. They think they've got it right, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with them being confident in their ability to get this thing right. I don't have any issue with the level of competency of the people that they've brought in. I really don't. I know 2 sounds like I don't trust any of them at all, but it's really about the people running the show. And the person running the show is Amy Adams Strunk. Devin Canfield says, are we the worst in the league in your eyes? If not, who is? Oh, Cleveland. Cleveland's a shit show. Cleveland is a mess. You didn't give out a fully guaranteed contract to a quarterback with sexual assault allegations, and some of them not allegations. You didn't draft 2 quarterbacks in this year's draft, Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd and Shedeur Sanders in the 5th, which maybe it was just an Andrew Berry decision. I would be shocked if that was true because that makes 0 sense for the current configuration of their quarterback room. No fan base puts up with more bullshit than Browns fans and still loves their football team, which is beyond me. I would not give them any money whatsoever if I was a Browns fan, given how bad, how shitty they've been at this. But it's the Browns. It's the Browns for sure. Man, like I don't think the Titans are the worst forever. I just think they've made some really bad choices. Like I think they've made some really bad choices in the last couple of years, and that's put them in a hole. Doesn't mean that they have to be shitty forever or that they have to be bad forever. They are welcome. Like I said, everybody can have a chance to earn back that trust. This is now Amy Adams Strunk opportunity to earn back some of your trust by making the right decisions and letting the people that she hired do their jobs. That's just what it is. B French says the Jags are probably down there too. Jags aren't down there for sure. Jags, even as recently as this offseason with the whole mess that they had with their general manager. And by the way, they may have screwed that up and still get it right because Liam Cohen can fix Trevor Lawrence. Maybe they think he can fix Trevor Lawrence. There's reason to believe that Liam Cohen should do that. And if Liam Cohen does that, then people are going to stop paying attention to how shitty the Jags organization is. That's just kind of the way that you exist. Scott Van Horn says, I'm still waiting for the site to be better news reporters or whatever it is that you call yourselves. Get ones that aren't negative, that actually like the team. Well, you just clearly don't understand what it is to be a news reporter. There should be no slant one way or the other, positive or negative. And yeah, I mean, I think those lines have never been more blurred. So you're holding us responsible for you not fundamentally understanding what today's media landscape is, and that's fine. You can watch the tape and improve, or you can bitch and moan about it and hope that something that you want to be true comes to fruition at some point, when in reality, it doesn't really sound like you know what you're asking for. I can be an objective team reporter, and I can say that your football team has made shitty decisions. And if they get it right, we can start talking about the good decisions that they've made. They have made a lot of bad decisions. Those are facts. If you want sunshine blown up your ass, you can go to people who work for the team. And I'm not like taking a shot at people who work for the team, but like they're not allowed to say things that the team has done wrong, right? So those options exist if you want to stick your head in the sand and just say, oh, they're being so mean to my football team. Why can't they be nicer? You're the worst team in football. Like nothing. If I was a fan and somebody like you was in my fan base, I would be so shitty at somebody like you who makes excuses for bad decisions. You don't have to simp for them just because you like them. That it's one of the most mind-blowing things to me year in and year out. And I understand that me, popping off about it every once in a while is not going to change how you view these things, because clearly you're warped, right? I can't do anything for you, sir, right? If you are this far along in your life and you still don't understand how it is that this shit works, then you're beyond my help. You know what I'm saying? And that's okay. You probably don't want my help. Why you're even here is beyond me. But if I was a fan of this team and somebody like you was out there being like, but they just need to be nicer in the coverage, then the football team will be better. No, you dipshit. Get out of here. What are you talking about? Hold them accountable. Hold them to a higher standard. Don't just say, well, the coverage sucks. No, they suck. It's not the coverage's fault. Yeah, sometimes can things be taken to extremes? Of course. The environment has never been more, how can I say this? People who are good at one thing in today's media environment usually have opportunities to do other things at the same time. So a beat reporter. I used to be just a beat reporter, but I'm good at talking. Good at talking. You know what I mean? I'm good enough at talking that you can give me an opinion show. Okay, so now I'm a beat reporter who's getting paid for their opinion. Great. On top of that, let's give him a radio show. He's good enough at that. He can do that here too. So now you've spread all these different things where you can still be objective and have an opinion, and that opinion is fine for you to disagree with. You're entitled to your own opinion, but it's also incumbent upon me to tell you when your opinion is stupid and it sucks, and that opinion is stupid and it sucks. Be better. Anyway, just like the fact that I love those comments. I really do, because it's just like, where the hell have you been for the past, I don't know, how long have I been doing primetime? 7 years? Jesus Christ. Let's let's see. William Jones says, Buck, F that guy. He just wants to hear D riding radio. That's fine. Those things exist for you, sir. If you would prefer to live that kind of existence, those things exist for you. You can go find them. Please go away. I don't want you here. I could not have less interest in having somebody like that here. If you're invested in a team, if you're that invested into a team, you're flat out weird. No, but I think those are different, right? And I let me do an ad read before we get further on, because we're already 40 minutes in and I don't want to just spin my wheels on something that I've done 10 million times at this point. But, it feels like once a year we got to do this shit. So A to Z Sports Prime Time is made possible by the wonderful people at TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch, TrueMathFitness.com. Your first workout free. Friday, my TrueMath days. Love their personal training, group fitness classes, personal training. You can work out as you please in their open gym concept with one of their memberships. Very affordable, very effective. TrueMathFitness.com for more details. All right, now I can spin my wheels. I don't think you're weird if you're that invested into a team. That's being a fan. That's okay. Like, I don't want to shout people down for being fans, but I can shout people down for being foolish in how they go about it. If you're just somebody who wants the scales to stay in front of your eyes the entire time and hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil about the football team, and just hope and pray and wish that something better happens at some point, as opposed to being like, hey, why are you guys so bad at this? Shouldn't you be better? I just don't think there's anything wrong with that. You can still be a fan. You can be the most in fact, I think it makes you a better fan. And I'm not here to police your fandom. I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan of your team, because that's not the space that I operate in. But I think that fans who hold their teams accountable while still being fans, you can support them and think they do a shitty job. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just this blind, simping for them that really just it grosses me out. Just do better. Anyway, I think that there are plenty of things to look for as far as checkpoints for them to hit as they continue to get better, as they continue to try and get this thing right. But right now, it's tough to trust them. Let them earn it back. That's my only point. It took me 42 minutes to say that. Sorry. Rising and falling. Let's wrap this thing up on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. In the comment section, if you would like, whose stock rose, whose stock fell this week in sports, you can submit your nominees. We will get to ours here in just a second. Oh, I've already reminded you that TrueMath Fitness is who we have. Is this my rising and falling here below Jerry Jones, Robert? Is that what that is? What is that? What is that video? Do we know?
We decided that we were going to talk about how much we hated the NBA draft, which kicked off 8 minutes ago.
Is that what this video is, or no?
No, there ain't no damn video.
This?
You don't get no.
Oh yeah, no, I don't want
that. I can show you this.
Yeah, the NBA. What is that?
My desk vacuum.
Oh, that's your desk vacuum. That's awful. Why would you do that to them? As if me just bitching at them hasn't bothered them enough this evening. The NBA draft is going on. I don't like the NBA draft. I think the NBA draft is one of the worst products for a league that really needs any good off-season hype, off-season help, all these different things. I hate that you can trade players within the same breath that you draft them. I think it kind of defeats the purpose of even watching the draft. I hate that Stephen A. Smith is on the draft coverage. I respect the ability of Stephen A. Smith to make $20 million a year doing this for a living. Love that. Love to see anybody get that kind of a payday. I'm not foolish enough to think that I'm going to make $20 million a year in my lifetime doing it. But if I can make 5, then I'm really happy. And if it's because Stephen A. made 20, that's great. I don't want him a part of the draft coverage. I don't want him on the NBA Finals coverage. Just leave him on First Take and let him do his thing. Like, he doesn't need to be on everything, and he is on everything at this point. There's a lot of things, a lot of mistakes that get made with this draft coverage in particular. And also, the Dallas Mavericks do not deserve the number 1 overall pick. The lottery thing is bullshit. And if we're dealing with a story in the NFL where there's been collusion between the NFL, its ownership, its commissioner, and the Players Association, it's hard for me to not think that there's not some level finger on the button holding for the NBA in that Dallas Mavericks Luka Doncic nonsense. So it's really, there's a lot of things that can be improved upon it, which is a shame because I think Bob Myers does a really good job, the former general manager of the Golden State Warriors, who's also on this broadcast. And I love Kevin Nagandi, and I don't dislike Stephen A. Smith. I just don't need him on everything. They put him on everything, and it's exhausting. Devin Canfield says, rising Shane Gillis on behalf of the ESPYs. He's hosting the ESPYs. Man, I hope they just – can Shane Gillis be that kind of funny where his jokes are not network TV friendly? So, I mean, he's clearly and obviously a funny human being. Are they going to let him be Shane Gillis, or are they going to try and make him like late night talk show host Shane Gillis, which is a much tamer, has to be much cleaner because you're putting it on television. So I don't know. I'm always skeptical when they put like those kind of comics on assignments like this. I'm optimistic because Shane Gillis is really, really good, but I don't know. I'm sure he'll do a fine job. I'm sure he'll manage it. He's fully capable of doing this, but it's not Shane Gillis, right? It's FCC safe Shane Gillis. And I think those are two very different things, but good for him. It's a good gig, good visibility at this point in time. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Radio show tomorrow. Come hang 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We'll have a great time together, and we will see you all there. We are less than a month away from training camp, and we'll look forward to that. We've got some tight end U stuff we can talk about tomorrow too. Yeah, it'll be a great time had by all. The radio show was fun today. We had Jack Jones. We had Ramon Foster. Not sure what we're going to do tomorrow as far as guests, but we can work on that. And you'll just have to show up and be surprised tomorrow on 104.5 The Zone. See you guys.